Hi class, my name is Caleb Rutland and today I'm here to talk to you about the different types of bones and the classifications, the things bones do, how they protect us, how they function, and just to give you a little bit more insight on bones. Well, a lot of people think there is a lot of different classifications of bones because we have 206 bones, but in reality it's only three types of bones. They are classified by their length. We have long bones, short bones, and flat bones. That's the three type of classification for bones. The long bones can be described as your humerus, your femur, your tibia. They have a longitudinal access to them. Your short bones are things like your tarsal bones of your ankle or your carpal bones of your wrist. These are more cube shaped. They're wide just as are they long. So they're wider just as they're long, or wide, or they might be wider than they are longer. Then you have flat bones. Flat bones are like your ribs, your sternum, your scapula, things like that. They're broad and thin and flat. That's what they're called, flat bones. Next, continuing, we have the sigmoid bones. Everybody has two patellas, and that's in your kneecap. So everybody has a kneecap. Other than that, the sigmoid bones vary from person to person. One person might have more than the other, or the next might have more than that person. It all depends on you, your body type, your genetics, depending on how many bones, how many sesamoid bones you have. The reason they call it sesamoid bones because they're like the size of sesame seeds. They look like sesame seeds. So when you think of sesame, think of sesamoid bones. Next, we have the supranumerary bone, and these are bones that's other than the two patellas or supinary. So if you have more than two, then there's supinary bones. Then you have the Wormian bones. They are small bones found in the structure joints between the cranial bone of the skull. Now we're going to the long bone parts. This is being more specific of the long bones. The previous description was a generic description. So we go to one of the long bone parts is diaphysis. Say it again, diaphysis. This is the shaft of the bone. It can stand strong forces without bending or breaking. They compose of compact bone tissues that line the inside of the surface. Another part of the long bone you have is the epiphysis. The epiphysis expand at the end of the long bone found at each end of the epiphysis. It's from a joint with another one. It forms a joint with another one, and it increases stability of the joint. It has a spongy bone material with a thin layer of compact bone tissue. So the epiphysis has two tissues, a spongy bone and a compact bone tissue. So remember that. Epiphysis, two, and diaphysis is just composed of compact bone tissue. Um, Next, we have the articular cartilage. It's softer than the bone. It provides cushioning and shock absorption. So your shock on your car could be referred to as an articular cartilage. That's referred. It gives support and everything, and it does absorption for the joint. This all sounds good and it's all real good, but one thing you need to know about articular cartilage is very poor in blood supply. Very poor in blood supply. Next, we have the periosteum, and this surrounds the entire bone except for the articular cartilage, and this is thin, disc fibrous membrane. So when you think of a periosteum, think of thin, disc fibrous membrane that surrounds the entire bone set for the articular cartilage, and the articular cartilage, once again, is very poor in blood supply. Next on the list, we have the medullary cavity. It's the central cavity of the bone shaft where the red bone marrow and the yellow bone marrow is stored. The medullary cavity is located in the main shaft of the long bone. Again, the main shaft of the long bone is what? The diaphysis. The medullary cavity has walls composed of spongy bone. So the medullary cavity is composed of spongy bone. It stores the red bone marrow and the yellow bone marrow, and is located in the main part of the shaft of the long bone. Now we're going into the function of the bone. Those was part of the bones and the classification of the bones. Now we're moving a little bit into deeper into the chapter where we have the function of the bones. The main function of the bones, as you already know right now, probably protects the body, so it gives structural support for the body, keeps your posture up straight, it keeps you standing tall. Then it also provides leverage for the body movement. So my arm could be considered as a lever. It provides lever as a movement. You have protection of the underlying structures. So like my ribs, my rib cage, those things protects underlying structures. You have your cranial bone that protects your brain. So these bones act as protection, and it also stores calcium. Calcium. It stores it. You need calcium. Calcium is good for you. It stores calcium. It makes you stronger. And that's when bones get stronger. Calcium makes the bones stronger. All right. So we have three bones, and those are osteoblasts. They build up bone tissue by secreting matrix tissues of the bones. Then you have the osteocytes, as the small chambers within the bone matrix. Then you have the osteoclast. It breaks down bone tissue by breaking down the matrix tissue of the bone. Then now we're going to the compact and the spongy bone. The compact bone definition is composed of units that are cylindrical in shape called osteons. They primarily found in the long bone. So compact bones are primarily found in the long bone, and they also have a cylindrical shape called osteons. A spongy bone appearance looks spongy because of the irregular spaces. But the irregular spaces are very important because this allows for nutrients up from the blood supply to diffuse. So the reason why you have the regular spaces and the spongy look is for they want the nutrients from the blood supply to diffuse throughout the body and throughout the bones. So this is why you have a little bit more lightweight, a little bit more area to work with. The bone development and growth, you have the endochondral ossification. That might sound a big word, so we'll say it again. Endochondral ossification. And this you have up to 5 steps that can work with this. And this was the formation of the bone cell. This was the formation of the bone collar around the hyaline cartilage model. And then you have cavitation, the cavitation of the hyaline cartilage with the cartilage model. And then you have the innervation of the internal cavities. And after the innervation of the internal cavity, you have formation of the medullary cavity as ossification occurs, and it continues. Then the fifth and last step, ossification of the epiphyses. Epiphyses is the ossification of the epiphyses. When it's completed, the hyaline cartilage remains only in the epiphyseal plates and the articular cartilage. Sorry for the mispronunciation of the words. I'm working on them as we go. As the more I study, and I'll get the pronouncing back together. Thank you. Okay, next we have the intramembranous ossification. This ossification occurs within the membrane and it's a thin sheet of soft tissue. This membrane is composed of fibrous tissues. Next, we'll be going into the fracture healing of the bones. First, we'll talking about the protection of the bones, the classification of the bones functions and what they do. And then the last one we just came from was the bone development and the bone growth. The bone development has 2 methods, and like I said, the 2 methods for the bone development and growth was intramembranous ossification and endochondral ossification. Those are the 2 methods for bone development and bone growth. But what happens when you fracture a bone? I think that's what people want to know. What happens when you fracture a bone? Well, you have fracture healing, and a hematoma is a gradually resorbed fibrous cartilage, and is deposited in the fracture site. This tissue temporarily holds together broken ends, and this is called a callus. So, a callus is a tissue that temporarily holds together broken bones and broken ends. The fibrocartilage callus then calcifies resulting in bone callus. So when they say it calcifies, it means it gets stronger. So once the callus comes through and holds the bones together temporarily, the fibrocartilaginous callus then calcifies, resulting in a bone callus which bonds them together. Next, we'll be going on to something that we like to call Wolff's Law. Wolff's Law is basically explaining the stress that happens when you put stress on your body. What happens to your bones when it has physical activity, when it has time to grow and time to adapt and things like that. So remember what we call it? We call it the Wolff's Law. It's two things about the Wolff's Law. It's a good part to the Wolff's Law, and a bad part to the Wolff's Law. So we're going to talk about the good part right now. Calcium is laid down in response to stress. So if I put a stress on my bone body structure, like I do squats or something like that, the more I do it, the more stress happens, the more calcium is going to be laid down. So that means the stronger my bones would be. That means the stronger. So your calcium is good for you. Calcium is going to make your bones stronger. Get it? You need it. So increased physical stress is placed on the bone. Then the bone responds by gaining bony matrix and it thickening. So every time I put that stress on my body and the bones, it gets thicker. It gets thicker. It adapts because it knows, okay, now I have to get stronger. I have to get better. So let's get thicker. Let's get bigger. But it could be a bad side effect to this because too much stress on the bone can cause excessive calcium, and the bone becomes denser and denser, and calcium occurs outside the margin, and this results in something we like to call bone spurs. Nasty. You don't want to deal with bone spurs, and also it causes a joint disease called degeneration joint disease, also known as DJD. Last but not least, we're going to talk about some things that it comes there's some things that it happens with tendons in the bones, and we're gonna talk about contractility, weight bearing,